Live from Jacksonville, Florida, the Four Verticals podcast is about to start now.
And welcome in. Excuse me. And welcome in. This is the Four Verticals podcast, the pre-show, if you will. We'll, I guess, get started here in just a couple of minutes here on YouTube live. As right now, it is 1:56 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here high atop a hot, steamy Jacksonville, Florida. No rain in sight today, so that's good. So we won't have to deal with, the typical Florida afternoon thunderstorms. So, that's been happening the past, it's normal to run this time of the year. It's the rainy season. But more or less normal this time of the year. But today, the past couple of days have been pretty quiet, at least where I live in the Jax metro area. So that is good. We'll get started here in just a moment. Of course, we're live on YouTube. We are also, of course, on Spotify as well. We'll be having those folks joining in here in just a moment as we get the link out on Twitter. Of course, it's been a couple of days since we've been on the air. Not a lot of big news has happened, but there is, of course, there's obviously some news going on. But, besides world news. But, I figured we'll start. We have a brand new segment we're starting on the show, and we're continuing the record rejection series segment. Michigan's up next, and then we'll do some Q&A. And of course, as I mentioned last week, I will see what I do with the Thursday show. We may just pre-record something, or we may do a show Friday. Who knows? But either way, we'll have something towards the end of the week. I'm pretty sure about that. Of course, I'll repeat myself again once the Spotify folks join in, but figured I'll let you guys know, I guess, ahead of time that's probably the direction that we're heading. But yeah, mostly, let's get my water here, mostly going to be a football-focused episode, and no real Marvel news, no real, not major DC news. There's a few things from DC. We'll probably move that to the Thursday show. But for the most part, it's probably going to be mostly football related. So, some of that. So again, hopefully everyone's having a good day. I know. Fix my microphone here. Again, mostly for college football wise, I know there's some realignment stuff going on. We will maybe touch on that Thursday. I'm going to wait and see what the other national types have to say about it. But, I guess we can probably go ahead and get started now. So, as I pull up the Spotify folks, their version. And then again, I guess I'll point this out before we start. Apologies for the Spotify stuff. I totally forgot to upload those 2 episodes on there. So now, as I check, they should be up now. So if you're wondering where all that was, that should be fixed now. There should now be the episodes. There should be episode 102, 10, and 102, 103. They were both uploaded today. Again, apologies for delay. I guess the large gap in between episodes, but it is what it is. So with, I guess we can start now. I just want to get that out of the way for you guys on YouTube. Again, I'll repeat most of this in the intro, but then trust me, we'll get the show started. I just wanted, enough time for everyone to hop into the stream. There's only one person watching, but that's just be playing it on the my laptop here. But no big deal. Again, we're 100 episodes old, over a year old. So we're still improving. We're still growing our audience ever so slightly. So okay, we're gonna get started here in 3, 2, 1. Welcome into the Four Verticals podcast episode 104 here on this June 17th, 2025. A high top a steamy Jacksonville, Florida. Very hot outside. Of course, it's summer in Florida. No thunderstorms today, as it has been the last time we talked. However, between then and now, we've had, of course, where I live in the city, it's been less rain, I guess, if you will. We haven't gotten that much rain lately. But, it's hot, steamy, muggy. Hurricane season, for the most part, quiet, thanks to the dust and the wind shear. But as we all know, eventually, as I've lived in Florida for over 10 years now, that eventually this will the Atlantic Basin will wake up and we'll get storms eventually. But we do have a jam-packed show for you guys today. We have a new segment debuting on the show. Record projection series continues. That's been a staple for us for over a year. Michigan is up next. And then we have some Q&A. And just off the top, probably won't be any Marvel topic or Star Wars topics, at least at the moment. There's some stuff going around like rumors and leaks for Avengers Doomsday. And of course, there's Ironheart that's coming out. You can be completely honest, I'm not really touching that show. I'm not really going to be watching it. Despite there being some folks excited about it, but I'm just not really sure if the core and the general public are really excited about it that much. So we probably won't talk about it on here on this show, but yeah, mostly going to be a college football themed show, which is understandable for this time of the year. Of course, we're in preview magazine season. Media days is coming up for the major conferences, so a lot of things happening pretty quickly. Of course, we have Fantastic Four and Superman coming out very soon, next month. So if you are new here, welcome in. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. That's very important. Okay, if there's one thing I want you guys to do is to subscribe, like the videos and streams. We don't have to click the notification bell. I don't personally for my shows, but you can do that if you want. And on Spotify as well. Follow us over there as well. I think that's where we posted. Been on Spotify for a little longer than YouTube, but it's certainly been on YouTube a little for over a year as well. We just haven't been doing the consistent streams that much. We recently started doing that back, I believe, last September. So we've only been doing it for half a year or close to a year. I guess actually close to a year now. But yeah, again, Twitter, YouTube, Spotify, subscribe. That's all I'm asking you for to do. I don't want you guys to sign up for a Patreon page or anything like that. I'm not like asking you guys for money. All this stuff is for free. All of the things that we talk about on this show for free. Not behind a paywall, not behind a a Patreon page or whatever. All the access that you need, all the information that you need is right here with us. On YouTube, on Spotify, that's all you need. Or at least that's all you need to do to get access to, which is free too. So all you need is an internet connection, a phone, tablet, computer, TV, laptop, whatever. If you have all of those things, you can get access to this. So there's very few hoops you have to go through to get information from this show. So the boilerplate stuff out of the way, I guess we can hop into this. So I, over the last couple of days, have convened a brand new segment on the show. Something that I've been thinking about doing for a long time. And this is not a major change. This is something I guess it's sort of like the Q&A, but it's not like the Q&A to where it's a little bit different. It's the Spicey Predictions. Now, people do bold predictions. Now, like, for example, Josh Paper, he has his own bold predictions segment. He gives you a rating on how boldness the prediction is that you give him. Now, in lieu of just not copying him, I figured, why don't we do our own spin on this? Now, everyone, I'm sure most of you have heard of wings, right? Wings you get at restaurants, right? At bars, restaurants, whatever, whether it's like Buffalo Wild Wings or here in Florida, it's Miller's Ale House. I've been there multiple times. I'm not a big hot wings fan, like spicy wings fan myself, but I do. It's not terrible. Much more in the mild to warm category. But I figured, why not just introduce this new segment, mostly related to football predictions. But again, instead of making it bold, spicy, right? Get it a different flavor, right? No pun intended, but how this works is going to be, we have a scale, much like wings have a scale. Our predictions will have, our scale, right? How, just how insane they really are. So the lowest form of it is mild, right? Think about the wings analogy. You have your spicy, hot, warm, mild. For us, mild, in this case for predictions, they could happen. They could easily happen. Something I could see that, I could totally see happening. Warm is a maybe. We're getting a little spicy, but we'll see. It's very much so in the realm of possibilities, but could also definitely not happen. Hot, slightly more unlikely, and then spicy is totally unlikely. I do not foresee it happening. And much like the record projections, we may do a circle back to this in like December, January. So that's why I have a separate Google Doc for this. So for past spicy predictions. So for the 2025 season, we will circle back to this come February and January 2026. So we will circle back to this after once everything sort of calms down. And this also, by the way, these predictions aren't limited to college football. You could, who knows, there could be a Buccaneers prediction in here as well. So just keep an eye on that. So again, the scale here, mild could happen, warm, maybe hot, slightly unlikely, spicy, unlikely. And again, this isn't the only other segment we have started. If you're new to the show, of course, we do the record projection stuff. We also do upset alerts on Thursday. When we do a Thursday show, we'll do upset alerts, and that follows a similar rating system. If you're new here, I will explain it to you guys when the season's in full swing, and we'll start that up again. So for I guess round one, if you will, for Spicey Predictions, our new segment, we have 3 here. We'll go over the first one. Pretty interesting one here. So it is Tennessee has a worse record than UCLA. Now, of course, you don't know what the significance of this is. Of course, Tennessee, they lose Nico, goes to UCLA. They, being Tennessee, bring in Joey Aguilar, who was with Appalachian State, was with UCLA for the spring. He goes over to Tennessee, so he's the starting quarterback. We have not, I don't think we've done a UCLA record projection. I know we haven't done one for Tennessee yet, so we haven't done both of these record projections yet. So this is sort of, I guess, a preview, if you will, for both of these teams. I know for sure we'll do Tennessee. I don't know if we'll do UCLA. But looking at both of these records, or both of these records, both of these schedules, if you will, they're both difficult in their own ways, right? UCLA, Foster, head coach Deshaun Foster there for a second year. The talent level, let's just be real, it's not necessarily, how should I say this? It's not at the level to where they can be competing for Big Ten titles. That's just not realistic. Now, their schedule, I have not looked at a whole lot versus Tennessee's. So they do get Utah, what used to be a Pac-12 matchup. Now that's a non-con, Big 12, Big 10. UNLV as a G5, that is very difficult. New Mexico, I believe, is the overall. So they have no FCS team this year. I don't think they typically do. So they're out of conference, 2 G5s. You have your Big 12 opponent in Utah. You should probably start 2-1 in that stretch. Then you get Northwestern on the road. That's a relatively, or at least that's a team that is relatively on your level. You're probably better than them. Then it's going to get real in a hurry here. Penn State, Michigan State, Maryland, Indiana, Nebraska, Ohio State, Washington, USC. That's a tough schedule for Big Ten standards and for what the talent level UCLA is. And I know a lot of folks will mention, oh man, they have Nico Iamaleava now. There should be no excuse for them to go 5-7. Guys, the rest of the team is not that good. They're still a long ways away. I know they've had to do a lot of transfers coming in. They took in a ton, but it's not really a finished product there. I think that Deshaun Foster, when he took over, and of course now they have a completely brand new coaching staff, right? Your Vanamy's out. Samseri from Indiana is now the new coordinator. Even with the newness, with the roster they have, and now with the new coaching staff or the new additions to the coaching staff, this wasn't going to be an overnight fix. This is going to be probably going to be your traditional 2 to 3 year rebuild. And I know, I guess there's been a lot of conversation too about how focused is UCLA into football. Are they invested in it and they take it seriously? I happen to think they sort of take it seriously. I know the argument is sort of like Kentucky football in terms of of a basketball, right? People the joke for the longest time was that Kentucky football was just the distraction until basketball season started. And that's like that for UCLA. What UCLA more or less a traditional power in basketball. John Wooden. I just I don't know about UCLA football. I don't know. Again, I understand that it's when Foster got there, it wasn't going to be a massive rebuild. Yes, you can make the argument that Nico is a upgrade over Joey Aguilar, and I believe that is true. But you're only bringing in one guy who was a 5-star level talent, or at least could reach that potential. Outside of Nico, the talent level there, if you were to, I know Bud Elliott hasn't done the blue chip ratio yet. He hasn't put it out yet, at least to my understanding. I'm sure he'll do that soon. If I recall, like like they're not in the blue chip ratio. They're not in that list. They have not reached that echelon. They're still way behind. I would imagine if you're to do their blue chip ratio percent's probably in the 20s, right? I imagine 2015 probably. It's not up to a normal standard, right? So yeah, and again, look at their schedule. Again, it's Penn State's on there, Nebraska, Ohio State, Washington, who I'm very excited about. In fact, we have a Washington-related spicy prediction on here as well, which is next after this one. But you look at UCLA in general, and you go over to Tennessee, you have Josh Heupel, and it's a much more established program. It's on a rebuild. It's just a reload year, more of a gap year, or a liminal year, transitional year. Their schedule's hard too. They have Georgia on there, Bama, as per usual, the two rivalry games. Florida could be very difficult this year. Oklahoma coming to town. They have their own conference game against Syracuse, so it's tough in terms of the conference, right? You get Georgia, Bama, Oklahoma, Florida, but because of Tennessee's roster development, what they've done in recruiting and what they've brought in the portal, while yes, I'm not expecting Tennessee to be 10-2 this year, I do believe they will take a step back based on who they lost, especially on defense. A lot of those key players have moved on to the draft and for different reasons and purposes. But I don't think they will have a worse record than UCLA. Just because they lose their quarterback doesn't mean it's like the end-all be-all, right? They still have, it's their schedule and it's a lot more manageable, and they still have decent enough talent there. Granted, a lot of it's unproven, but I'm not expecting like Tennessee to go like 5-7 like I would imagine UCLA would probably go. I'm not trying to be mean to UCLA. I would like them to be at least consistent again in football. I just don't foresee it this year. So I do believe this prediction is a hot on the scaling here of mild to spicy. It's a hot, slightly unlikely, but it's not. I don't really foresee it happening. I could have definitely put this as a spicy prediction, but I think a hot prediction is probably appropriate here. Could it potentially happen? Let's just say Joey Aguilar doesn't pan out. Tennessee has a lot of injuries, and that schedule is even more difficult than we think it to be. Then we could maybe this time next year, or I guess in January and February, and then we could have a different discussion. But at the moment, that's a hot prediction. That's a pretty hot prediction. Next one here, sticking on the West Coast. DeMond Williams wins the Heisman Trophy. That one's pretty warm. Now, it's not hot, but it's warm, meaning that, again, like I just mentioned earlier, it could happen. It could maybe happen. Now, if you don't know who I'm talking about, DeMond Williams Jr. is the quarterback who will be the starting quarterback for Washington. He was there last year as a freshman. He played a little bit, played in the bowl game last year. Was quite good when he came in there, right? Even though he only played in a couple of games, still it's close to 1,000 yards. Interception to touchdown ratio is really good. He's a runner. He can run around. I do believe that Washington, as I mentioned weeks ago, or actually a month ago, they could be a good team. They're a team that I think a lot of folks now, of course, your cover threes of the world and your Josh Pates of the world, they have been trying to warn you about Washington and that this could be their best team in a couple years. Now, I'm not saying they're going to win the national or get to the national championship, win the Big Ten. No, I don't foresee that happening. But DeMond Williams having a good year and being a quarterback that maybe in 2026 could be, up, unless he doesn't transfer. That's I guess, and it's a world of college football now. That's the other little asterisk, if you will. But unless he stays there and everything, if Jeff Fish doesn't leave and take a different job, if things go according to plan this year and he continues to develop, doesn't get injured, continues to grow, 2026 for Washington could be an insane year for them. They could be in that realm of, I guess, with Penn State, right? Penn State continuing to get, their machine of getting talent in there with James Franklin. They could be up there with Penn State. They're not going to be like a level 1 team. They could be a level 2 team probably, at best. At worst, level 3. But, yeah, Williams having a good year. Yeah, that could be a very much a real possibility. But, if things go a certain way, because, again, you look at their schedule for Washington this year, and I talked about this in their preview under a record projection. They have a game against Ohio State early in the year, September 27th. as I stated before, I do believe Washington should be 3-0 going to that game. I'm not saying that Colorado State or Washington State could beat them. It's highly unlikely, but they should be 3-0. They should be undefeated going to that game, and who knows? At that point, it could be ranked as a top 25 team. If you're Ohio State, at that point, who knows what they could be? One loss or undefeated. That's a dangerous game. I'm just telling you, that's a very dangerous game, and that could be a potential slip-up spot for Ohio State. Again, it's an environment they're not used to going to. I would imagine Husky Stadium will be electric. I would imagine it'll probably be a night game. Just be careful. Again, I know a lot of you probably won't watch the Washington State game or the Colorado State game. I will, because I want to know what that looks like. And if they take care of business and Williams puts up really good numbers running the football and from the football, him being a Heisman Trophy contender, at least early in the year, it's impossible. Now, him winning it, it's unlikely, but I can see it happening. I could totally see him having a good season. So that one, warm. It's a maybe him winning the Heisman, though it is quite. It's a very it's definitely a pie in the sky prediction, but it's not totally off the radar too. Again, he's Washington's in a very attractive conference, a lot of eyeballs on it. Of course, that Ohio State game will probably be the first time most of you will be seeing it. Not me, because I'll make sure to watch those two games somehow, some way. So that one is on the scale from mild to spicy. It's a warm. It's a maybe. So it's not as crazy as the first one. And then the last one here is traveling from Seattle, Washington, going down to Athens, Georgia. Georgia loses both of its neutral site games. This one's not crazy either, believe it or not. This one's not really that crazy. So Georgia this year, they do have two neutral site games. Maybe think to yourself, oh, okay, so they get the Florida game in Jacksonville for at least one more year, and then it goes to Atlanta and Tampa for 2 years, and they come back. So it's the Florida Florida Georgia game's neutral site, right? So you're probably thinking, oh, they must have a big non-conference game, neutral site. They don't. They do not have a game week one, or let alone in the first couple of weeks. They don't have a big non-conference game besides Georgia Tech. They don't. They get their FCS team in G5 of this year in the first couple of weeks. They don't have a big non-conference matchup besides their traditional rival, which leads us to that other neutral site game. It's Georgia Tech. It's at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. For some reason, I guess Bobby Dodd Stadium wasn't good enough to host this game, but whatever. I've already went on my whole rant about my dislike of regular season neutral site games. There's some that I can understand why they have to be there. The Georgia-Florida game, I get it, even though I would like to have it, or at least I wanted it to be a neutral site starting next year, or at least for 2 years, but whatever. Or at least it being on campus instead of neutral site for when it's non-Jacksonville for 2 years and it comes back. So they do have two neutral site games. It's not the first one's obvious. The second one's not too obvious if you haven't looked at the schedule yet. So yes, that Georgia Tech game, even though it's in Atlanta, and I think Georgia Tech's technically in the home game, it's a neutral site game, but whatever. But going back to the prediction, could they lose both of their games? That's not impossible. The Florida game, for example. Yeah, Florida, I do expect, despite their schedule being insanely hard again, they still have DJ Lagway. That's still a very good team. Good coach, Billy Napier, contrary to popular belief. They could lose that game. Georgia could definitely lose that game. Georgia, to find the running back. Quarterback, we'll see if Garner Stockton. Defense, there's a lot of talent, but a lot of unknown talent. A lot of names you don't know yet. But that's a game that I would imagine Florida, of course, will be up for that game. It's it's an opportunity for Billy Napier to get another signature win. And who knows where Florida is at that point, right? Florida would already had, played LSU, Miami, Texas, and, A&M. And then they're in an easier game in Mississippi State. But I don't know. Who knows where Florida is? They could be, 2-loss team. They could be a team that is listless, and Billy Napier is probably on his way out. So, they could lose that game. Of course, anytime you play DJ Lagway, it's like, it's literally all of his entire skill set's literally just associated with Gucci model. You don't know what you're going to get necessarily. And then the second one is definitely losable. Georgia Tech, Brink Key, and company. Payne's Kings back again. It's a very good team. It's a veteran team, a team that's been sort of growing over the past couple of years. They're a team that I firmly believe will be competing in the ACC. I'm not the only one saying that either. The guys on Cover 3 brought it up. Josh Pate's been sort of parading it a lot this spring and summer. Georgia could easily lose those 2 games. Now, is it more likely to split them? Yeah, it's more likely, but it's not impossible. That's why it's in the warm category. I almost put it in the mild, but I don't know. I guess now I'm thinking about it, I guess I am talking myself into making it, put it in the mild category, but no, I'm gonna stick to my guns. I'm gonna stick to it being in the warm category as a maybe, and we'll see. But that definitely happens. It's not impossible. So yeah, that's it for the at least for today's version of the Spicy Predictions segment. Again, it's a new part of the show we're bringing in. We'll do it again Thursday. We'll probably do these until before week 1. So we'll have a couple months of doing this. Yeah, hopefully this sticks, and hopefully you guys do like it. I think it's a good name. Now, originally, I guess a little behind the scenes here. Originally, I was going to call this, believe it or not. But then again, that's Ripley's, believe it or not. I'm not going to get copyright from Ripley. So, and Lewin, as funny as that title would have been, I think the Spicy Predictions is just it serves the same purpose, right? It gets the point across. No big deal. I guess speaking of, it was sort of a Big Ten heavy first Spicy Predictions segment. Michigan team record projection here. Another segment we did last year. We're doing this year is next. So as I get some water here, we'll move on to that. Again, hopefully everyone's having a good day. Trying to check and see how long we've been going for. Okay, 22 minutes. On Spotify and YouTube, it's a little bit longer because we have the pre-show. So yeah, Michigan 2025 team record projection. Their over/under win total is 8.5. According to FanDuel, not a sponsor of the show, just a resource we used for a lot of different things. Michigan last year. I guess we can do a recap. I guess even though there wasn't much to write home about besides early part of the year. You can look at Michigan last year and. Look, we try to tell you guys, when Alex Orji was there and they were trying to tailor the offense, which is why they didn't necessarily go after decent enough wide receivers. It turns out it sort of backfired on them. That staff, again, tailored the offense and tailored the roster to meet Alex Orji's skill set, which was, him being a pure runner. Didn't really work out. They struggled in a lot of their early season games. Notably being USC, the real shocker in that. I think a lot of folks like Josh Pate called it early that week, and a lot of folks called him crazy. I think even us, we even kind of started to catch on that as well. So both of us, me and Josh, the two Joshes, sounding the ringing the bell for USC losing to Michigan, but no one was listening to us, and everyone was caught off guard. Then the Washington game happened, and the Illinois game happened, and the games against Indiana and Oregon. But then the rest of the season kind of, arrow trending up, right? Beating Ohio State, your rival again for another time this decade, beating Alabama in the bowl game. So it started out shaky, but then, they eventually getting some momentum. And of course, you had the Bryce Underwood signing, and then everyone's all excited for this year. And then this year could be a big year for them from Michigan. But their schedule is, again, somewhat difficult. They beat Michigan, Sherrone Moore. And of course, we have to also factor in the fact that he will not be coaching the Central Michigan game and the Nebraska game. So those are going to be 2 games that he will not be on the sidelines for. It'll be a yet to be announced interim, I believe. So we'll see who that is. Don't know if I feel good about it. I guess if you're a Michigan fan, having your first Big Ten road game, or your first Big Ten game period, being a road game and starting a freshman quarterback, if not your head coach, new staff there, a new defensive coordinator, or new defensive coordinator still there in Martindale. Chip Lindsey is the OC there, comes over to revitalize the offense. We'll see. Their schedule, though, for Michigan, non-conference wise, is it's quite difficult, to say the least. It's you get your G5, your 2 G5s, one of them's in-state, Central Michigan. As I've already mentioned that. Then you have your your big non-conference game against Oklahoma on the road with a true freshman quarterback. Now, Sherrone Moore will be coaching that game, but it's Sherrone Moore and a true freshman quarterback going on the road with Brent Venables and a desperate Oklahoma program. I'm just telling you right now, I believe Oklahoma is favored, I would imagine. Yeah, I guess it's a spoiler for when we pick this game eventually. I'm going to pick Oklahoma probably win this game. I just don't feel good about it against Brent Venables, freshman quarterback with, going on the road to a very desperate program. I just don't feel good about it. So that one, I'm not trying to sound like it's like a guarantee you're going to lose, but it sort of feels like it. That's the vibe I'm getting, is that you're probably going to lose that game. So I guess going into that Nebraska game, probably going to be 1-2, or not 1-2, 2-1, I guess. And then your rest of your Big Ten schedule: Wisconsin, USC, Washington, Michigan State, Purdue, Northwestern, Maryland. So it does taper off a little bit after Washington. So like in between Nebraska and Washington, it's a somewhat of a tough schedule. Then you have Wisconsin in there, which we'll see. And then you have your rivalry game with Ohio State. So it's not a tough schedule, but there's definitely losable games, right? The Oklahoma game, Nebraska, USC, Washington, Ohio State, Michigan State, even with Van Childs and Jonathan Smith, year 2, and let's see if they can get things headed in the right direction there. So it's a very even schedule with Michigan this year. Again, you have your tough games. You also have your games that you're going to definitely be favored in. But as I broke this down, as I sort of really thought about it, you have a true freshman quarterback. You're definitely going to have your struggles. You're definitely going to have your ups and downs and trials and tribulations. You're going to have also Sherrone Moore not be present for a couple games. New faces on defense. A lot of your veteran guys left, to go to the NFL. A lot of rebuilding, whatnot. But there is a road here, and in their best case scenario, they could go 9-3. Again, this schedule, while yes, there are tough games, there's only 3 guarantee games they're going to be dogs in. So again, the Michigan game, USC, I guess either USC or Nebraska, one of those two, and then you have Ohio State, right? You're probably going to be dogs in 2 games, I know for sure. The other 2, I guess choose one of the 2, right? Nebraska, USC. You're probably going to be dogs in at least 3 of those 4 games, right? So you're probably going to be not favored in those games, and then you'll be favored in the rest. So 9-3 is definitely a possibility here, right? We've seen freshman quarterbacks come in and they, impress. Look, I'm not saying Bryce Underwood's like some bum. No, he's very talented, right? I think, on Cover 3 podcast, Bud Elliott has mentioned this multiple times, that while he's not saying that he is going to be Cam Newton, but Bryce Underwood definitely has that similar skill set, right? He's a larger quarterback, can run the QB power. He's a good runner, can throw the football, has a good arm. All of the tools and skills you basically would want in a quarterback, especially for the type of team Michigan's trying to put out there, and let alone the conference you're in. That's the type of quarterback I think you would want to have out there. And there's no guarantee he'll be good, but there's no guarantee he'll be bad either. So again, there's probably that middle ground to where he's gonna struggle. He's gonna that Oklahoma game, I could for sure in my head right now, just him struggling, throwing interceptions, fumbles, and stuff like that. Just probably going to be a very ugly football game performance from him. At least that's what I think. But then there's the other side of the coin where it's like, you could come in there and, play lights out, have a surprise everyone. So there's definitely a possibility of that. But, it's more likely you lose that game. You probably lose either one of Nebraska, USC, and you maybe lose to Ohio State finally. So 9-3, reasonable to say the least. Somewhat, at the least somewhat reasonable. But I think that's probably the best case scenario. Again, their over win total was 8.5, so that would be over the 8.5. Worst case scenario is 6-6, and this is where injuries come to concern, come to frame. Maybe Bryce struggles a bit more. Defense maybe falls apart again. There's some opportunities, to say the least, where they could get more losses. Washington, for example, Michigan State, Maryland, certainly some of those lower tier teams, or I guess Washington not so much, but like Michigan State, Maryland, definitely. 2 teams just to be careful with. Definitely some teams that could be feisty, especially late in the year, depending on how this is going to go. I think for Michigan, again, if you want to look at new quarterback, new offensive system, and again, I think for Michigan, for me, in the first few weeks, the first 3 or 4 weeks, all I want to see from Michigan, I guess, well, maybe not the first four weeks, but the first 2 games against your big opponents, right? Nebraska and then Oklahoma. I just want to see, you don't have to win those games necessarily, it's not required, but I just want to see consistency and not seeing Bryce Underwood get rattled. Again, like I've been saying, going on the road facing Brent Venables and as a freshman quarterback, and at least from what we have seen, right, go back to the Tua national championship game, right? Those folks over at the Bama staff back in the day, they were flabbergasted how much Brent Venables surprised them and throughout formations and defensive schemes that they haven't really seen before. And, Brent's a very, you can say which one about him as a head coach, but as a D coordinator, he's up there with the greats, like at least in the modern era, like with, the Kirby Smarts in the world and the Will Muschamps of the world, very much so experienced, been around the game for a long time. He has seen a lot. He has also not seen a lot, but, well, it doesn't make any sense, but he has seen a lot, and he's certainly devising a plan to stop whatever Michigan's going to put out there, and certainly he's going to try to confuse the heck out of Bryce Underwood. So, again, I just want to see how they react up there. Again, it's a new staff, new quarterback. I just want to see, is it going to be a situation where that team crumbles if they, lose to Nebraska, lose to Oklahoma, or while they may lose those games, is there still, sign of fight, hope, right, for the future, which is 2026. I mean, a lot of folks are pointing to 2026 of being the year Sherrone Moore and company, they, let's skip things moving the right direction here, right? Let's not meddle with 8 wins again this year, but they may have to. So again, the worst case 6-6. Again, given injuries, maybe Bryce ends up struggling a bit more than we think. Given that there is limitations there too, if receiver, and we'll see if running back as well. Other key positions there to have. There's names there, but you don't know who they are yet. We don't know if they're going to be major impact players for them yet. So, with all this being said, if all the things I've been saying about the worst case and best case scenario, I think the best case scenario, worst case scenario sort of combined here. What does it look like, or what does the reasonable scenario look like here for Michigan this year? I think it's 8-4, right in line with the FanDuel number. Again, there is 2 games I believe you'll be dogs in: Ohio State, Oklahoma. I do believe there will be other games that you will potentially lose, right? So think, Nebraska, USC, Washington. I guess 2 of those 3 you could probably lose, and then that's, I guess, how you get 8-4. So 8-4 definitely on the table here. I think that is reasonable. I know that doesn't sound good for Michigan. I know that's not the standard there. Their standard is to compete and win national championships, but you have to understand from what they inherited last year. Josh Pitt always talks about this of new coaching staffs, right? It's always been an entry point. Sherrone Moore came in last year with a good defense, a defense that kept him in a lot of the games last year. You notice in Michigan last year, besides, if I look back in the, what happened last year with their season, most of their games, they did not really get blown out in, right? The Texas game, they kind of, I guess, the Oregon game, but, the Illinois game, the Washington game, the game against Indiana, they were not blowouts, right? Their defense kept them in those games, at least made them somewhat competitive. Their offense failed them last year. And again, that's mostly because they tailored it to what Alex Orji's skill set was. It turns out he was actually worse than they thought he was. He can really throw the football that well. They had to go to different options at quarterback. Receivers, again, because of that, were limited. The rushing attack for them wasn't what they thought it was going to be. So, again, it's sort of, Sherrone Moore and company enters in the season last year for good defense, offense mystery. It turns out that's kind of what it was last year. This year, it's a lot of new. And we'll see what happens, following this year. Could they go in the portal and get better players for next year and build up next year and build a better team around Bryce? So I think 8-4 is what you have to look at for Michigan fan. Again, I know that's not what you want to hear, but eventually, the Bills going to come due versus Ohio State. You don't think Ryan Day and company is going to just audibly sit back and watch you guys, even though they won the national title last year, just sit back and let you guys beat them again this year? I don't think so. I think they're definitely planning ahead and definitely making sure that doesn't happen again. And I don't foresee that happen again. I would imagine at some point, you're going to eventually lose to them, and that's going to happen. It's going to suck, but it's college football, right? Eventually, the good times must come to an end, right? That's the saying, right? So yeah, Michigan, I think the best case 9-3, worst case 6-6. Reasonable in my opinion, 8-4 again, based on what the roster looks like, right, and what they have coming back, and what they don't have, right. Again, I don't think they have good receivers. I don't think they have good running backs. I do believe they have upgraded at quarterback, but unfortunately, I don't have a full, at least the puzzle not completed. You have the pieces that you're getting on the path to being competitive eventually and potentially being a very good team again, but you can't have Bryce Underwood be everything. He can't be the offense this year. He's too young. Again, he's probably going to make mistakes again. The fact that his head coach will not be with him for their first big road game in the Big Ten, it just doesn't feel right to me. And not to mention, again, they have to play Brent Venables on the road. It's just, again, I'm just preparing you guys, again, as much as I believe Bryce Underwood's a good player or could be a good quarterback eventually, this year he's going to struggle. He's going to take his leaps and bounds. And I guarantee you this. Well, I shouldn't say guarantee, but I do believe this. Well, I do say that, and I do believe he will struggle at the beginning of the year. There will come a time this year where you will see this Michigan team perform at a level that you go, maybe it's against, Ohio State, or maybe it's against, a team like USC or Washington. You go, where was that team against Nebraska? Where was that team in the, in the Oklahoma game? Like, where was this at the entire year? I guarantee that's going to happen. Like I said, I guess I could say that. Yeah, I can guarantee you that will probably happen. Unless injuries aside, as long as everyone stays healthy, there could be a game later in this year against, again, your Washingtons of the world or USCs of the world where you go, man, how did Michigan look this good? And they looked like crap against Nebraska and Oklahoma. So just letting you guys know that could potentially happen here. It's not impossible to believe that. But yeah, Michigan, again, best case 9-3, worst case 6-6, reasonable 8-4. Sort of in line, I believe, with the field goal number. And I think a lot of other folks in the industry, if you were to I guess look at this, most of them would probably agree with me, I'd imagine. Try to see here, anything else to go over before Q&A? I don't think so. Yeah, so maybe more of a shorter show today, around a 40-minute show, but that's okay. This time of the year, somewhat quiet, but, that means that, we can do stuff like, the Spicey Predictions, Q&A, record projections. So a lot of things to talk about, but I don't think we're going to do an hour-long show, at least I don't think. As I get some water here, I guess since we're here, we're doing the show, I guess, as a reminder, again, make sure you subscribe to the channel, YouTube channel. Subscribe, like the streams, like the videos when we do our pre-recorded stuff. Also, be sure to follow us on Spotify podcast feed, and make sure to follow us on Twitter as well. _pod on Twitter. I may as well check in. See who there's any news or anything. I don't think there is at the moment. Yeah, I don't think there's any major news. Again, there's some Marvel stuff going around, but not really anything. Trying to see here. Okay, it's not Marvel related. Yeah, nothing too significant to talk about right now. But who knows? We may save that for the Thursday show, probably. I'd imagine. Go back to my notes here. Okay, so again, we have Q&A as we usually do towards the end of the show. A couple of questions here, mostly, again, football related again. First one, where are the EA Sports CFP 26 deep dive? So, as we all know, College Football 25 came out last year. They had these deep dives, right? These little videos sort of explaining all the... And it's very helpful, or it was very helpful, because, again, a lot of those were... It's the new version of the game, right? It's been away for so long. I think a lot of folks, probably would need a little bit of help or not help, but just getting acclimated, right, to the new things they're implementing. So that was good that they had those videos and the blog posts sort of explaining all the new attributes and all the new things are in the game, and explaining Dynasty Move for people who are new or old, because, again, it's a brand new game format for the most part. So they did those like every weekly, I believe, or bi-weekly, I believe. So it was every other week. Put out a deep dive, video, blog post, boom, there we go. But this year, and then last year's game, by the way, came out, late July, around, actually, I believe the same week, I believe, as Deadpool and Wolverine, or a little bit around that time. But this year, instead of coming out on the 19th, it's coming out a couple of days after 4th of July here in the U.S. So there's about 2 to 3 weeks until in that time. So there has been no deep dives yet at all for CFP 26, and a lot of folks are kind of getting concerned and worried. Has EA forgotten about it? There's a lot of speculation as to why they're not releasing them yet. One of them is actually tied to the leaks that happened with the beta test, and again, that was that was something that was supposed to be private, but then again, boneheads ended up screen recording it and taking photos of it and posting it on Reddit and things like that, and it just started spreading. And I think a lot of folks are theorizing that maybe because that stuff got leaked, maybe EA is sort of saying, "Hey, let's wait a little bit," as sort of punishment for the fans. I don't necessarily buy that necessarily. Do I think there is a situation where EA wanted to put stuff out officially, but then these leaks happen and they sort of get cold feet and just decided to wait a little bit? Sure, it's non-zero, but I don't think it's like EA punishing the fans for leaking stuff online. I wouldn't believe that's the case. I think it is just maybe it is a little bit of hey, let's just wait a little bit. The stuff already leaked out. Let's maybe give some time to let this sort of blow off. But who knows? But I do believe we will get stuff this week. That's my thinking. Again, the game comes out in like 3 or 4 weeks. They don't have a lot of time. I mean, unless you're just milking this off until like a week before the game comes out, like before like 4th of July holiday, and just go, let's just news up everything before the holiday. That's not impossible, but that would be kind of weird. Like just news upping everything like a couple days before a major holiday here in the U.S. I don't think they're going to go that route. I think they will release some stuff either this week or at the very least next week. But no, I don't think they're forgetting us. Scott O'Gallagher over there at EA responded to a tweet from someone saying, "Hey, I don't know exactly what it said. I don't remember what it said, but it was just like, hey, where's deep dives at? EA and Scott have this in a chokehold," and Scott, replied of a laughing emoji. I think they know that we're waiting for it. I think they're just getting us excited for it, and it's a marketing strategy too, right? I'm not buying into the theory that it is EA sort of punishing us for the leaks. I think it is just sort of to do with that a little bit, but I also believe it's more or less a marketing tactic, right? It's just us to get excited and building anticipation, and eventually, boom, here comes a deep dive randomly on a Friday, right? So I think we'll get some stuff here pretty soon. Now, will it be a little bit of a shorter timeline because the game is supposedly it's coming out, about 4 or 5 days after 4th of July? Yeah, I'm sure it'll be a shorter, time frame to get them out, but I think we'll get them out at some point. They've told us back when the trailer came out last month that they will be doing them. So just let them cook, just to relax, let them do their job. Don't worry. I think we'll get stuff eventually. And who knows? Maybe when we have our show later this week, whether it's pre-recorded or not on Thursday, who knows? Maybe when that show's being either uploaded or live, we will have something to talk about. So who knows? But yeah, I think they'll be coming. That's just just let them cook. It's okay. I don't think they're forgetting about us. And no, do I think is it a shine that the game's being delayed? I don't think so. Though it's not on the table, but it's certainly a non-zero chance. But it's very low. I don't think the game's being delayed. If it was being delayed, it would have been leaked probably. Someone would have probably already leaked it, whether it's guys like Matt Brown or folks who are at 247. I think that would have been leaked already. We would have had reporting that hey, there's potential this game may not be coming out on time. We'll see, but I don't think it's being delayed. I think the confidence is growing that we are probably going to get something this week. Who knows? Maybe tomorrow. Maybe we'll have something tomorrow. Who knows? Last question here as we sort of wrap up the show for today. If I were running college football conferences, how would I do it? Speaking of college football 25, the sort of how I would do it in the video game. So the way I would do this, and then this, I don't really say necessarily tied to the video game, but the video game is a somewhat of representation of what it would look like, I guess, or I guess the closest thing it would have to me being college football commissioner and realigning the conferences. So I've told this story before, but what I do for all my dynasty files in college football 25 is after the first year, to not screw up the current, or I guess the last year's schedules, I keep the conferences the same, begrudgingly. I would like to, or I would much prefer to change the conferences, just start out with what I've learned. When you do that, the schedules get fucked up pretty much. So, and I would like to have some realism, at least for the first year. So begrudgingly, the first year, I do keep things somewhat intact, if you will. But after that, after 1 year, I just go completely scorched earth. Everything's changed. So For example, the Pac-12, traditional Pac-12, with all of the teams that were there a couple years ago, they're all back. So Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA, they're all back. All of the schools that went to the Big 12, and the one that went to the ACC, Stanford, they're all back. And there's some other things I've done too. I believe I have added in, like I've changed the SEC a little bit to where I have not necessarily divisions, but I guess pods, if you will. So you have like one pod with a group of teams, another pod with a group of teams. And what I've noticed too when I've realigned the conferences in college football at 25, and I guess if I were to do this in real life, the big emphasis I would have, both in the video game and in real life, if I were to transfer my thinking in the video game to real life, major emphasis on regionality. Again, at least regionality in terms of travel, right? Again, having the conferences being, all of your games or conference games being at least close to you, where you don't have to like fly across the country to go to like Piscataway, New Jersey. You can go to Pullman, Washington, or Scottsdale, Arizona. You don't have to go that far. You can take a short flight or just take a bus up there, right? And plus, it makes it easier for fans to travel too. You don't have to, go freaking across the country multiple time zones. But another thing I want to keep intact, if I were to apply my thinking in college football 25 to real life, at least if I was in charge of the conferences and realignment, major emphasis on rivalries. For example, why not have Utah and Utah State play each other every single year? Why not have Utah and BYU play each other every single year? Why not have Oklahoma and Oklahoma State play each other every single year? Why not have Washington State play each other? Why not have, Clemson, South Carolina being the same? Well, that one's a little different because that's protected, but just some small things like regionality rivalries. Again, Utah State, Colorado State. Why not let them play each other in the conference? Again, stuff, little things like that. I think of college football, while again, it seems very niche, the general public would, scoff on it, especially the NFL types too. Why not? Why not have Utah State be in a conference? Well, yes, it does bring it down, and yes, they're bringing in a G5 and to a major conference, but why not? Why not do it? Why not bring in like a team like, Colorado State to play Colorado? Why not have these sort of, San Jose State, Stanford too? That's a rivalry too. I think a lot of folks forget that. That's what the Bill Walsh legacy game. That's a rivalry game, but yeah, that's one way I'll do it. Certainly, that's one thing I'll definitely emphasize, that in regionality, and also sort of keeping the conference balanced, right? Not having one conference being more rounds than the other, sort of having it very much consistent with each other, and you have your powerful teams. But it wouldn't be like one conference has all the big teams, all the big boys, and everyone else has like the leftovers and stuff. Not necessarily. I'll try to keep it regional. Now in the video game, and I guess in real life, well, in the video game you can't do this, but if I were able to rename the conferences, yeah, I'd bring back the Southwest Conference. I'd bring back the Big East. I would bring back, all the legacy conferences. I'll try to bring them back, but unfortunately in the video game you can't do that. And I guess on a spreadsheet you could do that, but it's I get it. College football's changing. Regionality's not a thing anymore. It's you're making it national, right? A national college football, I guess, landscape. Which look, I have no problem with necessarily bringing in new viewership right now and bringing in new fans, but they're just doing it at the expense of keeping things that were not an issue. Now there are issues now. Right now it's a crime to have Oklahoma State and Oklahoma play each other now. It's like, oh no, we can have that. No, we're gonna die. But I don't know. I just would prefer it to be my way, which again, having the conferences, the legacy ones back, having regionality back to a certain extent, and then having your core rivals, right? The teams that you consider rivals, I want you to play them every single year, right? So having Colorado play each other in conference, having Utah State, BYU, Utah, all of those classic legacy, rivalry games that don't get played that much. I'd like to have that be a thing. That'd be really cool. But unfortunately, in the current state of college football, it's not the way it goes, or it's not the way it's going. But at least in the video game, at least last year's game, I don't know if this year's game will have conference realignment or customizing the conferences. Hopefully they do. Please, EA, keep that. It's a really cool function. I imagine they will, right? I don't think they'll just take that away. If they did, that would have, and I would imagine it would have been leaked in the beta testing. So since it wasn't mentioned, I'm assuming it's, still a thing. So yeah, if I was in charge of the conferences, that's how I would do it. Right now, that's the criteria I would have, right? Your rivalries, your big rivals, and regionality. That's the sort of the makeup I would have with, if I were to control college football. If I was commissioner for a day, that's how I'd do it. not for a day, for a year, right? No, number of years, a decade even. If I was in charge, that's how I'll do it. So we'll be back, I guess, on Thursday. We'll see. Again, I'll let you guys know what I'll end up doing, or if I pre-record something, or we just go live, I guess, on Friday. We'll see. But until the next time we meet up later this week, or it be pre-recorded or not, take care. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, Wednesday, and again, we'll, in whatever form, or it's a pre-recorded show or maybe even a live show, we'll see you guys Thursday either way. So until then, take care, and we will see you on the next stream.